It gives me great happiness and joy to bring up the man that always expects a miracle. He is from Australia. He is been in practice for 37 years, married to a chiropractor of 36 years in practice. Phenomenal guy. For lack of a better description, I would tell you he's like the godfather of Australia. He's been a phenomenal coach, mentor, and one of the people he's had a great influence on is Dr. Brian Kelly. John Hinwood is a gentleman in Australia that everybody knows his name. He is spoken with great reverence. He is a grandfather type figure and is nothing but a sweetheart inside and out. He is what I think a chiropractic legend should be, and it gives me great happiness and joy to bring up my good friend, Dr. John Hinwood. Would you please get on your feet and welcome John?
Thank you. Stress. Who's ever felt stressed? Wow, who has a practice that has patients coming in who are often stressed? Right? What do we hear? Joe Dispenza yesterday said that 9 out of 10 office visits from patients are stress related. It's epidemic. The last figures that are quoted in the public literature, in Australia, in 2012, that the 2012 figures, it was $30 billion. If we step into the US, 10 times the population, the number's 300 billion. Who knows what 2013 was? The other thing that's stress, but under another name, is presenteeism. For those of you who don't know what presenteeism, that's people who turn up for work, put their hand out at the end of the week to get the cash, and sit there on Facebook all day. Sit there doing other stuff, Instagram, whatever it is. But they're not productive in the workforce. 27 billion in Australia and almost 300 billion in the US. As chiropractors, we can change those lives. But as well as adjusting people, we need to do something to support them outside. When they go home, when they're at work, when whatever that instigator is, whatever it is, that trigger is that brings on stress, we need to be able to give them some tools so they can put those tools into place. This is an epidemic, and it's getting worse. 4 years ago, Judy and I sold our coaching and mentoring business to 7 of the people we trained. We've spent some time publishing. I published a book in 2008. Charlie Tremendous Jones. Anyone know Charlie before he passed on in 2008? I handed out now, last month, I just went over 100,000 little white cards that say expect a miracle. That's over 100,000 personal encounters I've had with people all over the world. Everywhere I go, I give them to people. I checked into this hotel. First thing I do is I give the check-in person a card and say thank you. While she's checking me in, she said, "Would you like an upgrade?" I said, "I'd love one." I've had presidential suites where I've had some amazing things happen. People love these little cards. As Bruce Lipton said, it takes them somewhere else. They go somewhere in their conscious mind where they can think about it and create an outcome they want. So we just published in December 6 more books in the You Can Expect a Miracle series. And Judy published a fantastic book called Stress to Strength, Mind Tools to Calm, Connect and Create. Hans Selye, endocrinologist. He moved out of Hungary when the Russians moved in 56. He went to Canada, McGill University. And Hans Selye is the person, the father of modern day classification of stress. And he said there's 4. That's 4, right? That's 5. This is 4. Yeah. So Hans Selye said there are 4 areas, 4 classifications. The first one is eustress. And this is the good stuff. This is the stuff we have to have. This is the stuff that when I exercise it every day, I do it because I know it's enhancing the body, it's enhancing the health. There's good stress that we need in order to grow, in order to thrive. Then we have understress. And these are these people who are in this presenteeism group. These are people who are made redundant now because they're changing the economy around the world. Here's someone who's an executive level, and this guy can't tell his wife or his kids. He's had a big payout, and he still leaves at 7:30 in the morning with his briefcase and his laptop, goes and sits in a coffee shop all day, and comes home at 6 o'clock. He's dying on the vine. Under stress. It's becoming a huge area that's creating sickness. Then we go to overstress. Who's been to Latin America? Yeah. This is Peru. Fantastic way to travel on those buses and trucks. Of course, when you get to the corner, there's nowhere to pass. My wife and I spent 5 years on the road before we went to chiropractic college all over the world, and I remember there, the bus stops. It's full of peasants with us. You're nursing chooks, and there are goats beside you. And someone comes around and asks for money for the Virgin. Look, we need to keep our money. Why give it to the Virgin? Well, they all give money to the Virgin so they can go out and throw it over, because when you look over, there's buses, cars and trucks 4,000 feet down in the valley. They just get you around the corner. So overstress is good, and overstress we all have, and it comes to supporters pass an examination, get over something. And then the natural cycle of the autonomic nervous system between sympathetic and parasympathetic comes into play. It passes, and we come back to normal. The relaxation phase comes in. And the last classification is distress. Here's a photographer. He's out there doing what he's doing, and he just doesn't realise there's a 6-metre saltwater croc there who's hungry. So what happens? His fight-flight mechanism goes into play. Everything shuts down, adrenaline starts, and off it goes. And this guy hits the trail, as you can see. Doesn't drop his camera. He wants to keep that, and he's off. And of course, when he gets to safety, it changes. The relaxation phase comes in, and away he goes. But unfortunately now, in our modern life, and with technology coming into play, once, 20 years ago, you could write someone a letter and you didn't expect a reply for a week. Now you send someone an email and people expect an instant reply. The stress of life means that distress is staying in people's lives, and not only are we getting adrenaline, but of course cortisol, and that's the nasty stuff. And the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis just keeps going round and round, whether people are awake or they're lying down trying to get to sleep or whatever it is, and they're pumping out cortisol. Continually pumping out cortisol is making them sicker. It's sending them into chiropractors' offices. People committing suicide, people doing all sorts of things because the cortisol production level is not stopping. It's not going back to the normal relaxation state. It's not going back to the recovery state. Distress is staying in people's lives. I was speaking at a conference last year, and there were 2 women who were highly successful in a dating business. And they've now moved their energy from dating to helping girls between 11 and 15. Why are they doing it? They've got massive cortisol production that's not stopping. These girls are fielding and sending between 400 and 500 text messages a day. And they're fearful to go to sleep at night. Because if they go to sleep, what will some other girls think because they're not texting them back? Imagine that age, the cortisol that's moving through their system. 1970, Judy and I had travelled from Australia to Europe overland through Asia. Now, they were the great days. You could wander around Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, all those places. Everyone was friendly. Wouldn't like to do it today, but in those days it was great. We arrived in Paris, and as we moved across Western Europe, once we came out of Turkey, we saw busloads of American women and no men. You know, the Blue Rinse Brigade. They were just cruising Europe. I remember being at the Louvre, and there was a lady about 4'10", and she came up and she started to talk to me. And she was from Georgia. I imagine, that's what she sounded like. And I said to her, "Ma'am, do you mind if I ask you a question? There's something I just don't understand." Here I am, 24 years old. I couldn't work this out. I said, "There are busloads of American women all over Europe, and there are no men. Where are they?" She looked up and she said, "Oh, Sonny Jim, they're all dead. And we're spending the money." And then she went on to tell me that they'd passed on because they'd worked at the corporation, they'd worked at the plant, they were in a management role, they retired, and they didn't last too long. Now, the average age of a survivor of corporate America is 18 months. A friend of mine in the National Speakers Association in Australia, we were talking. He was speaking to the Australian Tax Office, and he mentioned that statistic. He said, a hand went up, and a gentleman stood up and he said, "Sir, I need to tell you, at the Australian Taxation Office, it's 9 months. Wow. 9 months, retire, buried. So, we've got our fight hormones and that nasty stuff, cortisol there, and of course we've got the happy hormones. Sure, my great friend Bruce Lipton would tell me, oxytocin 10 years ago, they still only thought it was secreted by women giving birth, lactating. Now we know that oxytocin is the hugging hormone. Men have got it too. They just didn't get it. They've always had it. They just couldn't be measured. Of course, serotonin, as we were told yesterday, as Joe Dispenza said, it wakes us up in the morning, gets us rolling. The smiling hormone. Dopamine, and of course endorphins. Endorphins, well, they say up to 3,000 times more powerful than heroin. Now just think, upstairs in this drugstore we have, it operates 24/7, and it secretes all these lovely chemicals and drugs whenever we want them in the right dose at the right time. Except if we screw up the mechanism, then something like cortisol keeps getting pumped out. Now, people often say to us, we teach people all sorts of tools and techniques and strategies to stay calm or to move to calm. Because we all have a default setting in this computer. And what happens, we get stressed, and who finds they've got a default setting they go to that's not nice? Yep. Is it just me? I don't think so. We all go to a default setting. What we need to do is change that default setting so when we get stressed, we go to somewhere that supports us in moving forward and we feel good. So what I'm going to do is just have you sit where you are, and I'm just going to get you to breathe. I'm going to use some Tibetan symbols, and these symbols will sound every 6 seconds. So remember, when you breathe in like Buddha. Put your hands on your tummy, so when you breathe in, it goes out like a big balloon. And as you breathe out, it goes in. So I want you to close your eyes. Just think of something that you'd like happen today that's going to put you into a lovely state of relaxation. Breathe it in. Let it go. Start to come out of that now. Turn to the person beside you and say, "That feels better." Okay, over here we've got a glass of water. Now, if I ask you, someone says that's half full, someone will say it's half empty. But that glass of water, I'm holding it out there, and whatever it is, but it's a glass of water. How long can I hold it there for? It depends, doesn't it? It just depends on what my muscular endurance is. Whether I've got a problem in my cervical spine. There's a whole range of things, how long I can hold that for there. But what happens over the course of a day, stress starts to build up. And people start to put it into the cup, put it into the glass. It's going home time. Now what I suggest you do is make sure at the end of the day you do something with it. You deposit it. You put it somewhere. You put it in the garbage bin as you leave. You pour it on the garden. You do something with it, but you don't take this home. You go home to a different environment where there isn't stress. Well, let's hope there's not. But at least you can start afresh. So it could be half full, half empty. I'll put it down now, but it just depends. That may have been dropped by somebody else by now. So just think of that stress as something you need to pass on, not carry around with you. Now, I'd like you to put your right hand out in front, put your first finger out in front. We're going to start at the number 8, and we're going to make a circle like a clock going clockwise. 8, come around. When you hit 8, go across to 2. You've just drawn a no entry sign. Thank you. So if stress hits you, draw a no entry sign. Then say to yourself, I release, let go, and move on. Because you don't need to hang on to this stuff. You have the option of releasing it, letting it go, and moving on. I call it my cancel sign, and I use that. If someone's really bugging me, I do a cancel sign just to recenter myself. University of Buffalo in 2012 said the 30% higher risk of dying for each successful stressful event in your life. But the desire to care for others shifts that risk to 0. How fortunate are we here that we're in a caring profession? As a chiropractor, as chiropractic assistants, because we care, and the more we care, the more we give, and that's been coming up all weekend, this takes us to another place. Yale University, 2012. 30,000 adults in an 8-year study were asked 2 questions. How much stress in the last year do you believe stress is harmful to your health? Results? Those who believe stress was harmful to their health, 43% increased risk of dying. Those who did not believe it, lower rate. Conclusions? How we think about stress determines our body's response to it. How we think about health makes us sicker or healthier. Now it's up to us in the chiropractic family to make sure everybody we interact with has a great understanding of stress and what they can do to make themselves healthier and happier. We're educators. Robert Desnos was a surrealist poet in Europe. He was Jewish. He lived in Paris. And when the Nazis came through, of course, clearing out the Jews to take them to the extermination camps, Robert Desnos was taken. And he was taken to Auschwitz. Anyone here been to Auschwitz? Yeah, evil place, am I right? Judy and I got locked in there once. They didn't know we were in there. We were in there for several hours after it closed. Eerie, eerie, eerie. What happened? The Germans had to leave instantly when the Russians poured in. It's just across the border from Russia, and it was left as a museum. So Robert Desnos is in a work gang. And that work gang had come to a time when these men were skin and bone, nothing left of them. So they decided they were going to the gas chamber. And where Robert Desnos' barrack was, I've been in that barracks, and on the other side, like 800 metres across, is where the gas chambers are. When you're Auschwitz, they take you in the gas chamber and they lock you in there for 15 minutes. Eerie. The spirits, the unbelievable place. Robert Desnos made sure he was first onto the truck. Here are these guys, skin and bone, nothing of them. Young SS guards, taking him over there. Robert Desnos gets onto the truck and he runs to the back of the truck. And he said, first man, come to me. Let me read your hand. I'm a palm reader. He reads the man's hand and he said, I'm going to tell you, sir, when you leave here, we'll all leave here very soon. He said, you're going to become a famous banker in Europe. Show me your hand. And men were just forging forward. Read my hand. He told people they'd be statesmen in the United States. He gave people predictions of wonderful, positive things that were going to happen in their lives all over the world. 2 weeks later, Auschwitz was liberated. But what happened? Those young SS guards were so put off, so bamboozled, they didn't know what was happening. They thought, these guys have got so much energy, we can get more work out of them. We won't kill them today. We won't take them to the gas chamber. And they put them back on the truck, put them back in the barracks. They worked for 2 more weeks and they were liberated. The next year, Robert Desnos died of typhoid. However, the predictions he made of so many of those men came true. They did become leaders in Europe. They did become leaders in North America. They did become people who were statesmen, bankers, economists. Here's someone who took people who were stressed to the point that we can't even imagine here. And by changing their mindset, giving them the opportunity that there is a miracle out there that's possible, these men found another life. These men found somewhere else to go. These men found there was another life that they controlled. They were the people who controlled their own destiny. We can control our own destiny. We know what we can do. We can go out and we can help every patient we see reduce their stress and live a wonderful life with chiropractic. Thank you.
John Hinwood. John Hinwood.